happier for several reasons. One, I hate the Yankees with a passion. I wish they would go away for about 2 decades and just leave the sports world alone and be irrelevant for a while. I can't stand the Yankees. And then B, if you recall, if you're a weekly show listener, you would know that about 2-3 weeks ago, the week before the trade deadline in Major League Baseball, the one and only team that I singled out of all the teams in Major League Baseball to keep an eye on at the trade deadline, watch out for them, and watch out for them to make a huge postseason run, was the Toronto Blue Jays. Amazing. It's like I know what I'm talking about sometimes. It's like I research the topics and then I analyze the information in an unbiased, non-fan, overpowered way, and then I formulate my opinion and prediction based off of that. Wow, amazing. Who knew? Scotty Ball actually knows what he's talking about sports every rare once in a while. So I can't plug that enough. Go Blue Jays. Keep making me look like a genius. I thank you so much, Toronto. I really appreciate it. All right, now over to our Minnesota Twins, my Minnesota Twins. They are no longer sitting in the number 2 wild card spot. However, this is not cause for alarm or concern here in Minnesota. We were supposed to be a rebuilding, irrelevant team this year who is way ahead of pace currently. We need to be encouraged by that. We need to remember what we were, what we are, and what we can be. And stay the course. Things are looking great for the present and the future for Minnesota Twins fans. But you got to get over this whole, we were a playoff team at one point in this season. We were one of the 5 best, teams in the American League, which would have put us in the wild card round of the playoffs, and now we're not. And so, it wasn't our year. Okay, this was not our year to make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs. It'd be awesome to make the playoffs as a wild card, maybe even advance out of that wild card round and then lose in the next round. But there was 0% chance ever of the Twins making any kind of late postseason run this season. So if you're a Twins fan who's upset about the Schneid, the losing streak, if you're a Twins fan who's upset at the lack of big, potentially impactful moves that could have been made or weren't made at the trade deadline for your team, settle down. Slow your roll. We are still way ahead of schedule with this team's rebuilding, where we were, where we are, and what we can be. All right, so things still look great for the future of the Twins franchise, and you need to accept the fact that nothing would have gotten us to the World Series this year. No, there was no move. We don't have that team yet, but we've got that team in place. And if we continue to stay the course, and the people we have continue to produce and improve, that time will be coming within the next 1 to 4 years. 1 to 4. I was going to say 5, and then I tried to change it to 4, and I got fire, yeah, fire. Anyway. Anyway, with all that said, we will catch you up on your playoff races, your playoff teams here real quick. We won't go through all the basement dwellers like we usually do, but we'll just quickly give you a rundown of the top teams in contention. All right, so as I mentioned, the Blue Jays on their phenomenal win streak post-trade deadline have surpassed the New York Yankees for first place in the American League East. The Yankees are a half a game behind the Blue Jays. Currently, you've also got the Rays and the Orioles in there trying to battle for one of those 2 wild card spots. Now in the AL Central, you've got the best team in the American League by far all year, the Kansas City Royals, still on top of the AL Central with an 11-game lead over the second place Minnesota Twins. You've got the Tigers starting to come around just a little bit, although they're still 4 games under 500, as are the White Sox and the Indians at 6 games under 500. Although if any of those 3 teams got hot, Tigers, White Sox, or Tigers, White Sox, or Indians, excuse me. If any of those 3 teams got hot, they could still very easily get one of those 2 wild card spots, so that's why I mentioned them yet. And then out in the West, we've got the Astros back on top in their division with a 2-game lead over the Los Angeles Angels, and the Texas Rangers at 2 games under 500, desperately trying to stay into the wild card picture. So that gives your playoff teams right now would be the Astros, Royals, and Blue Jays as your division winners, and then your 2 wild card teams would be the Yankees as the number 1 wild card team, and the Angels as your number 2 wild card team, with the Tampa Rays and the Minnesota Twins being the next 2 teams in contention for that final wild card spot. Okay, and then moving to the National League, we've got the best team in baseball all year, the St. Louis Cardinals, 73-40. They are 33 games above 500. That is insanity. 33 games above 500. The next best team in the National League is 19 games above 500. And coincidentally, they play in the same division. The second best team in the National League is the Pittsburgh Pirates. And right now they would be the number 1 wild card. And then the number 2 wild card would be the Chicago Cubs, who are in 3rd place in their division at 64-48. Now, if they were in the NL West, they'd be in 1st place. If they were in the NL East, they would be in 1st place. So the NL Central, with 3 amazing teams, and I hope all 3 get in. But so you've got the Cardinals leading the division, and then the Pirates and the Cubs would be the 2 wildcard teams if the playoffs started today. Out in the West, you've got the Dodgers on top by 3.5 games over the Giants. Giants trying to hang in there for a wild card or possibly challenge for the division yet. And then out in the East, you've got the Mets 3.5 games up on the Nationals, who are 3 games above 500 and falling to the wayside here, inexplicably almost. So that is your Major League Baseball playoff picture as it stands right now. All right, now to get to the third and final segment of the meet and segue into some balls juice and wrap up the show, we will get to our NFL football. All right. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this past Sunday had the first NFL preseason game of the year in the Hall of Fame game, featuring my Minnesota Vikings versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and my Minnesota Vikings won 14-3. Now, all Vikings fans, I just want to point out, do not put too much stock into this. The best things you can learn from preseason, the easiest things to learn, I should say, from preseason, are who can't play, who can't get it done. Okay, like that freaking terrible tight end from the Steelers, who every ball that hits him in between the numbers just bounces off of him, like he's a wall in a racquetball game or something. But like I said, that's the easier things to take away. Now, like you can get excited about some of these younger, newer guys, like seeing our draft pick tight end Pruitt play well, get a touchdown. Those are nice things to see, but they don't tell you a lot. You can't learn a lot from those things. Now, however, when players are failing miserably, repeatedly, you can learn a lot from that. Okay, that's hard to argue. That very much suggests that they don't have what it takes. So look more for, again, it's easier to correctly identify here in the preseason who doesn't got it than to get super excited about, oh wow, did you see what that guy did? Like, it's preseason, okay? If somebody does great, it might be because they're third string playing against third and fourth stringers, and so you gotta be slow on the praise. But repetitive mistakes, especially unacceptable, correctable mistakes, those are pretty telling. But it was really nice. It was still nice to see the Vikings come out, play a good game, both sides of the ball. For 4 quarters, we got a deep team. We're super talented, and I'm telling you, look for the Vikings to be a playoff team this next season. I believe them and the Detroit Lions are very much just going to switch spots in the division compared to, in comparison to last year. The Vikings will be what the Detroit Lions were last year, and the Detroit Lions will likely be what the Vikings were last year. So, good for Minnesota, bad for Detroit. All right, now, speaking of the events this last weekend in Canton, Ohio, the Hall of Fame ceremony and induction took place on Saturday. And in case you missed it, here is this year's Hall of Fame class, and in my opinion, it's an extremely strong, great class. We've got Junior Seau, who was kind of one of the really big names and stories in this year's Hall of Fame class, and we'll get into that just a little bit here coming up. He's, in my opinion, the head of this class, along with Charles Haley, 5 rings, defensive end, pass rusher extraordinaire from the Cowboys, 49ers, and others. You've got the bust, Jerome Bettis, who I actually strongly disagree with as a Hall of Famer, period, let alone a first ballot Hall of Famer. This guy got voted into the Hall of Fame and on his first ballot because he's likable, because he's friendly, because he was in commercials, Campbell's Chunky Soup commercials and things like that. Dude did not have a first ballot Hall of Fame career, without question. Nobody with any intelligent, unbiased football mind would look at the entire career of Jerome Bettis and go, yeah, that guy's a no-question first-class Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Like I said, in my opinion, he's not a Hall of Famer, period, on any ballot. But everybody, he's very famous and super likable. And when it's voted on and selected the way that it is, you're going to get undeserving good guys like Jerome Bettis who get in there. And then consequently, you're going to have inarguably deserving bad guys, air quotations, bad guys, who have to sit there and wait year after year after year before they finally get acknowledged for their accomplishments on the field instead of getting punished for their personalities off the field. So I have a huge problem with that. Charles Haley was an example of this. He should have been in years ago. He should have been a first or second ballot Hall of Famer. And Jerome Bettis, like I said, should have had to wait about another 40 years. Rest of the class, Tim Brown, wide receiver, kick returner for the Oakland Raiders. Long overdue. This guy had a Hall of Fame career. Should have been in a long time ago. Punished for stupid reasons. Not for personality reasons, though, like Charles Haley. Probably just for team irrelevancy. We've also got all-world offensive lineman Will Shields of the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the best linemen of his generation, of his era. Absolutely deserved to be in. We've got Viking, former Purple People Eater Viking Mick Tingelhoff, our Vikings representative at this year's Hall of Fame class. So congratulations to Mick Tingelhoff, his teammates, family members, friends, and the Vikings organization. And then our 2 executive front office inductees this year were Ron Wolf and Bill Polian, both very deserving for their work in front offices around the NFL. So that's your Hall of Fame class. And my last comments on that was that I wanted to thank and congratulate the NFL on finally making the right decision in regards to the Junior Seau situation. Now, if you listen to the show over the last couple of weeks, you would know that I was very disappointed in the NFL and the stance they were taking on Junior Seau's induction into the Hall of Fame. Junior Seau is dead. He killed himself. He committed suicide. His family still currently has a lawsuit against the NFL. It is medically believed. It was studied after he died. They took his brain out and examined it and studied it used it for research purposes. Medical experts believe that significant repetitive trauma to the head did cause or play a factor in his depression, which obviously depression is always a factor, or almost always a factor, in suicides. So the NFL was very scared, honestly, to be quite honest, of this whole situation. And his daughter, Junior Seau's daughter, wanted to give an induction speech for her dad. Now, the NFL, 5 years ago, put in a rule that anyone inducted posthumously they don't get a representative to go up and make the induction speech like you do if you're alive. Junior Seau's daughter wanted to make his induction speech for him. The NFL said, no, that's our rule, and just no. We got this semi-new rule, and we're going to stick to it because we're scared of you saying something about the concussions or the lawsuit.